If you'll pay close attention today, I'll guarantee you that you'll improve your sky painting techniques 100%. Welcome to the Inspiration of Painting. I'm glad you could join us today. Before we get started, I want to briefly go over a couple of questions that we've been sent through the mail. We're getting so many letters now and so many questions, it's impossible to write everyone back and answer all the questions. So on every program from here on out, I'm going to take one or two of the questions and go ahead and try to answer it. Maybe it'll help some of you understand a little bit more about the intricacies of acrylic painting. Of course, there's still a lot of unanswered questions about acrylic painting that most of you struggle with. And number one is the moisture content. And that's the thing I want to deal with first of all. You know, acrylic painting dries through evaporation. The process of the moisture being sucked out of the paint and evaporating into the air creates a lot of problems for a lot of people in different areas of the country. So what I want to share with you, and it's such a simple thing, and we're going to go down to the palette now. I'm going to show you something that's very important in helping you keep your acrylics wet so you can do your painting without the frustration. The most important thing when you're working with your acrylics is moisture. Now, if you'll notice, and in some of the beginning tapes, I've taught about using the wet paper towel. Now, this paper towel is folded in force in there are several layers of it here, and you saturate the paper towel with your mist bottle. Now, where a lot of people have gone wrong, and I want to make it real clear, is that they don't wet the paper towel, they just dampen it. You want the paper towel to be extremely wet. And if you'll notice, I'm putting a lot of moisture on here. And then after you put your acrylic paints in order, then spray your paints again, and throughout the course of your painting, in several occasions, spray your paint so that they'll stay nice and wet. Same thing with your brushes. I lay my brushes down on my palette, and I'm constantly going to my squirt bottle and keeping them moist. This is one of the most important things you can do in acrylic painting to keep your paints moist. You can paint all day long just like an oil painter and never have the problems. Okay, that's one of the important things to remember about acrylic painting is moisture. So let's move on now to the whole content of this particular program. Another request we've had is how to do good clouds and sky formations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with any detail here, but I'm going to show you how to do an elaborate sky formation without much foreground. It won't take much sketching. It's just going to take a lot of concentration. If you'll pay close attention today, I'll guarantee you that you'll improve your sky painting techniques 100%. First of all, going up to your canvas now, your sketch is very simple. You're going to have a very low horizon line. Perhaps just some distant trees, maybe a small hillside or mountain. Basically, the entire area of the canvas will be sky this time. Okay, we're going to have light spots, dark spots, puffy clouds, a whole variety of clouds so you can get some different techniques. It's not unlike any other painting. We start the techniques the same way. Showing you how to use the right amount of moisture so that it'll stay wet is critical, and that will answer the second question, not only how to keep your paints wet on your palette, but how to keep the paints wet on your canvas so that you can blend them like you do in oil painting. All right? Well, let's get started. It's going to be an exciting time. Stick with us now. Remember, patience is the key to this. Don't get in a hurry, and I'm going to elaborate again on the 3 P's. Don't piddle, play, or putter, because that'll get you in trouble in this particular painting. The first thing we're going to do is take your sky and wet it with your mister bottle. And this time you want to put enough moisture on there that you can really see the water. You don't want it just dripping and running. Then take your sky brush, or your big brush, and evenly distribute the water so that there's no dry spots. If you have dry spots, you're going to get in trouble. Okay. Now, once you've done that, then you take your gesso, and I'm going to pour a little dab of gesso on my palette here, about the size of a pancake. And then you're going to put a generous coating on in order to get a nice blending base, okay? Now notice I've got quite a bit on my brush here, and we're going to go ahead and start putting on the gesso. Now I'm going to do a small section like this, and then I'm going to re-dip into another section, another section, and you add plenty of gesso generously. That answers the second question. A lot of people have trouble blending their backgrounds because it dries too quickly. Well, first of all, you need plenty of moisture underneath. Second of all, use a little more generous application of your gesso. This will keep your sky wet longer, and you can blend for several minutes before it even gets sticky. Now, just because we're working under hot lights here, my paints dry quickly, so this will be a good thing for me to show you when it does start drying how to loosen the paint again as it starts getting sticky. But keep adding your gesso using big X's, crisscross motions, being very careful to cover every part of the canvas. Don't get in a hurry. It's kind of contradictory, but you got to understand that painting with acrylic requires a quick stroke because you don't have a lot of time. Just learn to master the stroke. Okay. Now you don't have to go all the way down. It doesn't matter if you do. Okay, I've got it completely covered. Now, I'm going to put the first layers of paint on, and we're going to create just a solid base underneath that we'll paint over on top later. So back down to your palette, you're using your gesso. The same area of gesso, you're going to add to it now a little cadmium red. Work it in, you get sort of a pink or a peach color. I'm going to add a touch of purple. Okay. And I'm going to start down here at the base like this. And notice I'm using big X's. Great big, they're actually figure eights, to tell you the truth. Now that's real pale. I want to get it a little stronger. So in order to get it stronger, we use the color in its pure form. In other words, a little dab of red on one corner, a little dab of purple on the other corner. You've double loaded your brush. Come back up here to your canvas, put the paint on, and blend it. Back and forth, big figure eights. Okay, now there is a problem some people have, especially if you're switching from oils to acrylic, with overpainting. This will help answer another question. Overpainting in acrylic just simply means you blend too long in an area, and when you spend too much time in one area, another area begins to dry and you cannot match them carefully or correctly. So now, see, I faded up. The background's still nice and moist. And instead of fooling around trying to figure out what I'm going to do, immediately now, don't even clean your brush. Go right down to your ultramarine blue on one corner, your purple on the other corner, and come across the top of their canvas. Now that's a little bit too purple for what I want to do. Don't panic. Just come down, add a little more blue. And then a little burnt sienna because we want to gray it. Come across here like so, and use the same system. Put it on, actually you can put it on any way you want to, but as you blend it, use great big figure eights, big X's, like so. Back and forth. Now, blend down together till you meet these two in the middle, and then you're going to use what we call a feather stroke, which means I'm just barely touching the surface of the canvas. Most of us have a tendency to work too hard. We overblend, and then your painting is not soft, your colors are not clear, you get mud, and then you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, then you don't want to paint anymore. So be loose and free and quick with the stroke. You have several minutes, at least 5 minutes of blending time before it gets too dry. Now, I'm going to show you another trick here that will answer another question that we've gotten. Number one, if you feel like your canvas is getting too sticky and you're not blending well, take your mister bottle. Now, we've done this in the past, but I want to just elaborate on this. Hold your bottle back and lightly mist the entire canvas. By the way, be sure your mister bottle is a fine mister. You don't want something that squirts big blobs of paint or water, then you have real problems. Now, after you've misted it, then you take your brush and rinse it out. Get the excess paint out of it. Okay. Then you go back in here like so, starting at the bottom, using a feather stroke. Now keep in mind, these are instructional programs, and I want to teach you as much detail about learning this stuff as I can. If you'll pay attention and concentrate and practice this, your acrylic painting technique will improve dramatically. Don't be afraid. to attempt everything that I'm showing you. Now, notice how nice and beautiful and soft that background is. Now, on your TV, sometimes it looks a little lighter than it actually is. But this is a very soft, subtle pastel background to start with, so that's fine. Now, while this is drying, and again, to sort of conserve time, we're going to go ahead and quickly just block in some foreground just to get that over with and get our canvas covered. Now, take the same brush, I haven't even cleaned it out, come down to your palette, right in the same gesso and whatever you got mixed up here. Take a little blue, a little burnt sienna, a touch of purple, and create sort of a distant hill color, sort of a bluish purple. Then come up here with your brush and fill in the entire bottom part of this painting. And I'm going to show you here as you go, your sky is still a little bit wet. Go ahead and give the shape of some distant hills like so. Just kind of letting your background blend in. That makes them soft. Have some fun with it. Create your own shape. Just be sure the canvas is covered good. Keeping in mind all this time now that we're not interested in an elaborate painting, just sky. And we're going to study skies. Going to have to mix up a little more here. It's the gesso with blue, purple, and a little burnt sienna to make it gray. Okay. Cover it good. Build up your mountain form. Now then. Now that's a lot of fun. Okay. Now you've got your foreground done, you've got your background completed. Now it's time to start building your cloud formations. This is where you're going to really have to pay close attention, take notes if you can, and do a lot of studies. By the way, if you goof it up, don't worry about it. Let it dry, gesso over it, and start over. When I first started learning acrylics, I painted over so many of them, and it wasn't even funny. You can do the same thing. Just take some gesso, repaint over the canvas, and start over. So you don't learn to be a painter in just a few short sessions. You've got to practice and work at it. Okay, now take your big brush and rinse it out. Now this time, you know, and I'm not too quick to say you should clean your brush too often, but in this case I want you to clean your brush out, get the excess paint out, and then we're going to move up here and start building in some darker areas of the sky. You're going to work in the same area here, but this time I want you to take a pretty good batch of ultramarine blue and pile it in there and work it into your this little white mixture you had. And I'm adding a little touch of gesso to it. If you ran out of gesso, add a little white paint or add a little more gesso because you don't want it to be a bright blue, sort of a dull blue. Add a little burnt sienna. And a teeny touch of purple. By the way, this is a real good thing for you to know. Anytime you're working with gray, always add a little touch of red or purple to kind of give it a little life, okay? Your purple lightens it up, livens it up. Now, come right up to your palette, starting in the right-hand corner, and this is not going to make a big change for you, but it gets you started in the direction of building your clouds. All you're going to do now is change color slightly. See what I'm doing here? And also notice how wet this still is, simply because we took the proper steps, put plenty of water on, plenty of gesso, and you got all kinds of time to blend. Now that's a wonderful thing to learn. Now, you take this gray color and you just kind of blob it on and you move it. But you don't worry about it. After you put it on here and there, then you come back and feather it, like so, until the edges fade out. See, I'm fading these edges out. Now you can have little rounded areas on the bottom here, if you want, by turning your brush kind of sideways. Now this is one of those kind of paintings where you're going to have to trust me. Do what I do what I say here, and I promise you're going to have a good cloud formation. It doesn't look like it in the beginning, but it will. Now notice what I'm doing here. I'm coming down further into the lighter areas, now creating a little contrast. Just being sort of sporadic, not too concerned about any particular shape or form. Just remember, always keep your edges soft. See how I'm building in? Now it's a little sticky, perfect time to add these clouds where they're not too hard on the edges. Now then, and I promise you, once you learn to be a painter, you start noticing nature. Mother Nature is your best teacher. Start studying clouds and cloud formations. Okay, isn't this amazing? How long you can blend on this? Most people think with acrylics that there's no way that you can blend. Well, now we're going to prove them wrong. And then after you've kind of got your colors in there, so you can just gently slide over the surface and just blend it, okay? Now all we've done here is create dark and light values. We haven't really created any clouds. We've got dark values, light values, dark values, a few color changes, and that's it, okay? Now rinse your brush out again and have it ready. We're going to switch to our number 10 bristle brush now, so you might want to get that out. And so let's move to that. And make sure that, one thing I do is I rinse my brushes out, even if they're clean, get some water on them and kind of suck the moisture out and even out the bristles. It's good to start with a wet brush instead of a dry brush. All right, now the fun really begins. Next step is to increase the next layer of darkness with your number 10 brush and begin building a little bit more elaborate cloud formations. We do that by moving down to your palette, working in the same area, a little touch of water. Now this time you take your ultramarine blue, and by the way, you can use burnt sienna or burnt umber or both. And now that's what I'm going to do. Burnt sienna, a little burnt umber, and a touch of purple with the blue. And now you create a really scary color here. But keep in mind that when you put this up here, this is still just a little wet, that it'll soften. Add a little more blue to it. I don't want it to be too black. There we go. Start up on the corner. Now here's what you're going to do this time. Now you're going to go from a dramatic big stroke of blending to more of a scumbling motion. You see how we're scumbling? Laying on the paint. Don't get any particular shape in mind just yet, because if you do, you're going to get in trouble. I will say this about painting clouds. It's very difficult to plan a sky formation exactly. It's hard because so many things happen just kind of accidentally, okay? And what you're going to do is just build these clouds across, and all you're doing is changing values, which is another question that comes up quite often in our letters. Exactly what is value? Well, for those of you that have painted before, value, and this is a good place to study it, is not changing color, but changing the consistency, the intensity of that color. We may have several shades of gray. That's a value. See, we go from this value to this value to this value. We have 3 values in this painting, the light, middle, and dark. We can have 100 different values of one color just by simply adding more or less white to it. Okay? Now, you've got a little darker gray over there. Now let's move over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to scoot the canvas over. Now let me explain something to you here. When you put the dark on here, notice it didn't get as dark as you may have thought it was going to. That's because this part of the sky was still wet, and it blended in, leaving a softer gray. Over here, it's much drier, although it's still a little wet. It's going to show up darker. You see? Now this is where you have to work a little harder as an artist, where technique is important. You're going to use the side of your brush, and I'm going to try to point this out to you if I flatten this out here. Use the side of your brush here and scrub it. Scrub like this. Okay. See how we're doing here? Now don't panic. Just remember that you're in control here. Don't let this canvas control you. Now I'm going to show you something that'll be kind of fun for you as soon as we get across here a little bit. Now see, I'm letting the edges fade out so there's no hard lines anywhere. But on the bottom here, if you want that to be a little softer, all you have to do is to add a touch of white. I just went down and picked up a little white and add to it, see? And blend that, creating a softer, more fluffy-like effect. While that gray's still wet, so you can just move right in and take care of it, no problem. See how we do that? Now this is a very extremely professional way of painting clouds, okay? There's no real easy way, and it's not all that difficult if you'll just understand the principles behind it. Now see, I'm adding white now, and every time you add white, you change the value. So that should help a lot of you that struggle with sky formation just by simply knowing that you can add a little white. For instance, right now, if I wanted to add white here, see how bright that is? Well, by taking the same dirty brush and blending that white into the sky, it's not so bright anymore. So that's another trick. You can add white with a dirty brush and it tones it down quite a bit. Now what we're actually doing here is waiting for the rest of the sky to dry before we can go in and start adding a lot of the other values and colors that we want to have here. Because we still want to go darker, darker, and darker, and then come back with some brighter brights. Alright, now, while you have this on your brush, you've got a little white and a little bit of this gray. I'm going to come over here, kind of right in the center of the sky, and I'm going to build up some, the horizontal clouds that are just moving through as the wind's blowing. Just like this. Don't be afraid of it. It can't hurt you. But just remember to keep your brush moving, soften your edges, and I think you'll find it much more easy to build clouds. Don't think about a cloud as a specific shape. Now see what I'm doing here is got a little sticky or a little hard to blend, so now I'm adding a little white to it, moving it. I might add too that the type of canvas you're using has a lot to do with how the sky formation comes out. See, I'm scrubbing. This is really a lot of fun. Now sometimes you can add a touch of water and just a little white, a little gray. Let some of the background come through. Very quick, loose strokes. Now, if any of you recall some of the composition programs, if you got to see those, or if you've had any composition in school or whatever, keep in mind that every section of a painting is very, very important that you understand composing. Compose your cloud formation so that it's pleasing to the eye. You don't want something that's going to stick out like a sore thumb or lead your eye right off the canvas. You want to let your eye blend across the sky, move gracefully. Okay? Now, what we're going to do now is come over here on the left-hand side and do the same thing we're doing over there. I add a little white to the gray mixture, and we're just getting all the small miscellaneous clouds built in first. Now, your sky will probably look 100% different than mine. It's not important that it looks like my painting. It's just important that you understand the technique. Just like this. Now see, here I'm just using a little bit of smudge from some mud that's in my brush. So you've created another value of cloud. You've got the dark ones and the light ones. You've got this value, this value, this value, and this value. You've got values all over it. That's what makes it interesting. Now, I think I've got enough overall intermediate cloud formations. Now, right quick like, before we run out of time, I want to show you what the next step is so that you can be working on it and get that part done before our next session. We're going to go now and increase the dark value up in the right-hand corner even greater. Okay? So you take the same brush, a little water, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, touch of purple, get a much, actually the value is not any different. It's just now that our background's dry, it'll be darker. That's an interesting thing. Now you come up to the canvas, again now notice it's darker. This time, however, it won't fade out so bad because you have a dry underpainting. Now I'm just going to scrub in this background like this. Now I'm going to let some of the underpainting come through. You've got to have that value change. See, I'm just putting the paint on sort of haphazardly. There's no particular order, no rhyme or reason to it. Just have fun with it. See, notice how I'm scumbling back and forth, up and down. Let a lot of character happen to your clouds. Now, what I'm hoping we can do here, if you can see this close enough, I'm going to point out something out. The grain of the canvas is one of the most critical issues in creating a good sky formation. It's a little textured, and therefore when you blend, you can see the grain of the canvas coming through, and by allowing that to happen, you create the softness that a cloud has to have without always having to add another color, okay, or white paint to it. But notice the grain of the canvas is very, very important. Let the canvas work to your advantage, okay? Very important. Now, very quickly, you've got that dark area there. Any place else where you feel like you want some darkness, this is the time to do that. I'm going to come right in through here. Again, letting your canvas, the edges of it, kind of rough, creates the softness. Now, I want you to notice something. This is where we have fun. See, we're creating some interesting shapes now. You're letting your brush just kind of bend, the bristles go different directions. And as a matter of fact, if you'll just get a piece of canvas and just concentrate on practicing on it, I guarantee you in a little while you'll be able to understand clouds and the nature of your brush and how it works. Notice how loose and free we build these clouds. Now, this is not the finished product. We have a lot of work to do. Also, I want you to notice, though, how far back I'm holding the brush. Now, I've jumped on you many times about this, but it's critical that you keep your hand way back on the brush as much as possible. Now, there are times when you have to get in like this, and I do that a lot, but sometimes you have to hold it back to get the looser, freer effect. Okay? Now, notice what we're doing here. We're concentrating on darker values. Softening, blending, and in our next session we're going to start laying on all the brighter light areas, the whites, the sunlight, perhaps even a sunburst coming through. Who knows what we'll do. It's kind of an ad-lib type of sky, and once you learn technique, you can make some of the most beautiful sky formations you've ever seen. Okay, well, I'm going to leave you here in a minute, and what I want you to do while we're finishing up this program is concentrate on what you have to do to finish your painting by simply laying in the darks and the lights to get this part done. I really enjoyed having you. As usual, we're out of time. We'll see you next time on the Inspiration of Painting. God bless you and stay inspired. Hi, welcome back to the Inspiration of Painting. Well, I'm glad you could join us again today. We're going to continue with our sky formations. I hope you've got your background pretty much completed now and you're ready to move on to some more details. However, I want to answer another question. As I told you before, we're going to answer a few of our questions we get in the mail because I can't take the time to answer all of them from all over the country. But a couple of things have come up that I think are very interesting. Number one, a lot of people have asked about when you finish a painting, about varnishing a painting. Well, I want to say one thing about varnishing in acrylic painting. First of all, if you'll notice, even at this stage of your painting, there are no dull spots or shiny spots. The painting is even in value and tone. There's no, like in an oil painting, you have dark spots and dull spots where the oil dries or where you have more oil in some places than the other. An oil painting needs to be varnished. But an acrylic painting is self-sealing. You don't need to do any finish work on it when you're done. So if that'll help some of you in the concern you have about protecting your painting, you don't have to varnish it. Now, you can varnish it if you want to with an acrylic varnish, and I will show that to you sometime, maybe when we get a painting finished and we have some extra time. But right now, it's not important to worry about sealing a painting. So maybe that'll calm some of the fears that some of you have had in dealing with that issue. All right? Okay. Now we're going to move on in here to the rest of the sky, and we're going to make tremendous progress this time, but we're still going to have to do some preliminary work, getting it built up. And remember, acrylic painting is done in layers, building up washes. Now, notice something. we've got several layers of color now. We've got a value here, we have a value here, we have a value here, we have a value here. We have lots of values in this painting now. We've got probably 8 or 9 different values at this time. That's what gives the painting depth. That's what gives it emotion and feeling. We're going to continue that process now. However, this time we're going to throw you for a loop. I'm going to go in with an extreme light color now, creating some brighter, more white type clouds. We're going to switch to our number 10 bristle brush now instead of using the sky brush. And once again, I like to start with a wet brush, so I wet it, wipe out the excess water, and now I'm going to put just a little gesso on my palette. You don't need too much, but I'm going to use, just pour out about the size of a 50-cent piece there or so. And we're going to add a little color to this, keeping in mind now, by the way, let's establish a light source. I like to put an arrow there because sometimes I forget. The light's coming in from the right-hand side, so everything on the right top edge of the clouds will be the light part. Okay? Now go down to your palette, take the gesso. Now this is very important, and a little touch of yellow. Now just a little touch. Keep in mind that the word touch means touch, and I dipped, so we got to lighten it up here a little bit. If you dip it in, you're going to get too much yellow. You want just a bare little touch of yellow. So I'm going to add some more white paint to it. There you go. Now I want you to add a little touch of red. Just a touch. There you go. A little more. Now, instead of using pure white, now you've got a much softer value of white. Okay? Now, I'm going to wipe the excess paint out of my brush. I'm going to take it now, load the end of it, move up to your canvas. Let's start over here on the left-hand side, and I want you to notice something now. I'll just put it on. Now watch how we build the clouds. Using sort of a scumbling circular motion with the side of the brush, we're going to start building the light part of the sky. Now I want you to notice something. We're not trying again to create anything elaborate at this point in time. Just build the shape of the clouds. We're not after a finished product yet. But always keep in mind that whatever you put on, you always fade out the back side of it so that it fades and there's no hard edge. Don't make a solid mass out of this. Now I want you to notice a very, very important part of this painting. As we come back into the layering of clouds, notice we're leaving some of the dark coming through. This is really important in creating depth, distance, character, and composition. Now I'm building the only area you're really concerned about any particular shape is this section right through here, okay? Now it's okay if you take it right on off the canvas. No problem with that whatsoever. Notice how we're scrubbing, leaving the background coming through, and this helps create the layering. Isn't that interesting? Now, here's another fun thing. This area right here, now, notice this is kind of a yellowish color. Now I'm going to go down to my palette, and I'm going to rinse my brush, lay it down, but don't clean it out, just lay it down. Switch to your number 6 bristle brush. And by the way, I'm going to make a comparison here, and I'll do this up in front of the canvas so you can see it better. Here's a brand new bristle brush. It's flat across the top. Okay, here's one that's been worn and used quite a bit. It's more rounded. Now, the next question I want to answer that we get in the mail is, why can't we just buy a filbert brush and use it? Well, there's something about using a pre-cut store-bought filbert brush that doesn't create the same effect that one that's worn down naturally as you scrub and fits the shape of the canvas or the texture of the canvas. So I'm going to suggest that you have 2 or 3 of these brushes at different stages, and as one starts to wear out too much, just start breaking in another one. That's what I do. I have several of them at different stages. Well, today I'm going to use this one that's nearly worn out because it helps to create a much more dramatic, softer edge for clouds, okay? Now move down to your palette. Now here's a problem we've got. We've got a mixture here. You do not want to use that mixture quite like that. Take some more white. Just take a small section of the area on the end of it. I'm going to rinse my brush out. I've got evidently got into some mud there. Okay. Now go back to the white. And this time I'm going to add a little teeny touch of red. Just a little. But now it's a whiter white. Okay. And move up to your palette. To your canvas. I want to build some areas now that are a little more sunlit. Like right here. And this cloud formation will be in front of this cloud formation. Now watch how we develop. Now watch what happens. This is how you start layering and building 3-dimensional clouds with lots of depth. Okay? And watch it develop. Now what we're actually doing here is putting the highlight on the edge of these darker clouds. See how loose and free, letting the texture of the canvas aid me in the blending process. A real smooth canvas, you don't get this blending effect quite this good. Once again, if you'll notice, I'm working in, around, and through the painting. I'm not staying in one spot for too long. Now, if I wanted to come in here and build some more white, actually, I hate to use the word white because it's really not a white. It's just a variation of it. If I want to cap out one of these, put a little white on the outer edge if you want. Move right on into the painting. Now you can make this sky formation as elaborate as you want to make it. Now, as your paint begins to thicken up, and this probably will help answer another question that we've had written to us. Let's move down to the palette now. I want to show you a little trick of the trade. This is where I really feel like I can help most of you. A lot of you don't get the tricks of the trade. And let me show you what happens when you move down to your palette here. I'm experiencing right now a dry situation where the paints are drying out instead of dipping your brush into the can of water, all you do is touch the edge of your paper towel, and that puts just enough moisture in the tip of your brush. See, I go to the paper towel, to the paint, and then up to the canvas. And watch what happens now. It gives me just enough moisture to do what I have to do. And if you dip it into your paint, into your water bucket, you almost invariably, every time, get way too much water, and then you have to do some adjusting, wiping your brush out or whatever. So if you want just a touch of moisture, just touch the paper towel. Okay, now we've begun developing the light part here. Let's move over to the right-hand side, and I want to do just a little bit of the same thing over here, only this time I want to be a little bit more careful. Moving back down to your palette, we're going to go down and again take a little moisture. Anywhere you can get just a little touch, like right there, a little dab of water over here. Doesn't matter, just get a little touch. Now we're going to begin with the darker values of your clouds up here, adding some of the, well, I guess you can call them silver linings or whatever. Work a little bit of the paint out. Now what I do is I gently smudge the highlight on the top right-hand side of each cloud. Remember, the sun's coming in here. I've noticed one thing that a lot of students do. They overpaint. Just paint certain areas. Now we got to compose this properly, and it's okay if you let some of the clouds come back and run into this one. It's okay. Now see, I've capped out these. I'm going to cap out this one. Now if you get in an area where you think you're struggling, you can't blend it, you can take your finger, see, and soften it, and that creates a beautiful soft cloud. Just a wonderful cloud formation. Great opportunity. Now, I don't know if you can feel what I feel, but this canvas is textured enough that it just drags the brush and makes such a beautiful blend. It's excellent. See, I'm just barely touching it. Okay? Now, you don't want to take this highlight way over here in the dark area, because then that'll throw our composition off. But you do want to move some of the white in other areas so that it will balance, okay? So now what I'm going to do is take and come over here, right sort of in the center. I'm going to experiment for a second. I want to start adding some white, get a little more on your brush, on the edges of some of these, because you want some of these clouds, these horizontal clouds, to have highlight as well. And just by throwing in these little white areas, smudging them in, you create another interesting concept to your cloud formations. You create another mood, a little bit more movement. And I guess one of the most important things that I want you to understand is mood. Mood is very important in a painting. Put some emotion and feeling into it. Great painters don't concentrate on detail, they concentrate on mood. Emotion, feeling. That's very, very important. Okay? Now as you come across here, notice I'm not putting large, elaborate clouds. I'm just putting little accents. Now, while it may seem trivial to some, this is one of the most important parts of the painting, because this is ultimately what pulls your eye back into so you can pick up on these. Now, in a moment, we're going to switch to a different color. But right now I want to get just a few more little accent highlights here and there that create some of the interest in this. Okay, now let's rinse your brush out. And now we're going to do something. As a matter of fact, this sky could basically be left as it is and be finished. I'm really happy with it. You can do a lot of things to your sky to change it. And what we're going to do now is add more color. Let me tell you why you want to do this. For instance, say this is a fall scene or a spring scene or whatever season, or maybe it's a different time of the day or whatever the atmosphere is, and you just need color to accent with. Okay, that's what we're going to do now, is add some accent colors. We'll probably even go over some of the areas. Now we go back down here, add a little water, right in the same puddle. I'm going to add a little purple, a little burnt sienna, a touch of blue, and I'm going to come back with the purple. I want the purple to be a little bit more the color. There we go. And then with that sort of a muddy white, it's not a real bright color. See, it's sort of it's a kind of a lavenderish. Now I'm going to do a little experimenting right quick. Good. Now what I want to do here, and so that I don't have just a lot of gray clouds, I'm going to scumble throughout the painting, wherever you have the darker areas. If you'll notice now, I'm scumbling in this soft color, not necessarily because I want to change the color of things, but I want to add a little softening to the painting, add a little bit of the pink color, to pick up the pink here. It's a wonderful thing to do to create the mood that we were talking about. Now see, I just made a mistake here. I put too much paint on, okay? So I'm going to take a paper towel, kind of wipe it off, catch it quickly, then I wiped my brush out down here. because you don't want this color to be a dominant factor. Now what this does is softens the gray, creates a much more unified effect to the painting. Same thing over here. What I'll do now, if you'll notice this, watch how this gray, even though it stays dark, it's softer. Very important part of the painting. Now watch a unique thing. Using the same color, if you'll come down here, notice this nice soft cloud it creates. Up here it didn't look like it had much color at all, but down here in the light section it's got wonderful color. A little contrast, very subtle, but it's still there. And just smudge in these little clouds that are whipping across the horizon and have some fun with it. This is a good way to soften your horizon. I'm going to soften some of this area right in here so that we'll have just a little bit more. I think those are just a little dark, so very quickly I'm going to have to mix up a little more. Remember the colors: blue, purple, a little burnt sienna. I kind of overdid it there a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go in here and just kind of gently soften this, and it's changing the color, it's changing the value a little bit. But this way you don't get just gray. You get some of the more natural earth colors, sky colors. Okay. By the way, let's go ahead and wipe out our charcoal marks just so that you won't blend them in and it makes your sky dirty. Now notice right here, I'm going to pull some of this purplish color right on out into the area of the painting. I like that purple. Now just by listening, you can hear the scrubbing effect take place. That's the texture of the canvas. And now you can see why this brush wears out. Notice what we're doing now. We're building in these soft purples all through the sky. Anywhere that you want to soften something, build this in here. Really phenomenal. So you can pull in a complete light area here just by adding this light. Okay? I think you understand now probably the basics behind why we do this. What we're trying to do, quite simply, is just get rid of the pure grays and the light and add some value changes, some color changes that make it more interesting. Now at this point in your painting, you can do a lot of things on your own. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. At this point, you understand the principle of layering, of highlighting, adding colors, creating form, composition, so that we can get this one behind us and we can move on to another piece. I'd like to go ahead and just touch up quickly our foreground here, and then you can have this painting as a wonderful study to learn how to put clouds and a lot of other paintings that most of you avoid because you don't understand. Now, take your same brush, rinse it out, and we'll move down to our palette here. And if you have any of this yellowish white left that you use to accent up in the sky, well, we'll use that. If not, just mix up a little more, just white with a little touch of yellow this time. And up on your palette, canvas I mean, you're going to put some very simple highlights on the edge of these mountains. Just enough to allow your mind to know that these are mountains. Be very loose, very free. Kind of create a subtlety. Coming down. Now, I want to make a point here. While this is basically a study to teach you how to paint skies, it's not really an elaborate finished painting, we do want to finish it enough that it looks okay to you. Don't elaborate on these mountains. They have to be very subtle. Just be very loose and free with your highlighting. Don't spend a lot of time on it. Just enough to create some texture. See? But you still want to look like a mountain, and it's good practice for you. What we're doing is we're taking the tip, the peak of each one of these, and we're moving it down like this. Now I want to share with you that there are hundreds and hundreds of sky formations that you can make using this technique. For instance, right now, if I'm in the mood, I can go right back up here if I wanted to, and I can put little silver linings on lots of these to make it a more dramatic. You could put a sunburst coming out with sun rays. You can do a lot of different things. This sky wasn't necessarily designed for that, but you can see here, by simply adding little white highlights, you can create that horizontal cloud effect just by simply using the same color you're using on your mountain. And sometimes that adds a nice touch. Where I see most of my students going wrong is they get right up here on their canvas and they smudge and they paint and they just work and work and work. A sky doesn't have to be done that way. Be loose, be free. Just let it kind of happen. Don't be afraid to let the clouds come right down into and around the background here, these hills. I keep thinking about something that I like to mention. Fear will get you nowhere, okay? Don't be afraid. It only keeps you from learning. So what if you mess it up? Very good, very good. Okay, now quickly, we're going to add just a couple of trees just for the sake of making the painting look a little more finished. And as we finish up this painting, you will be able to go back in and soften, add colors. You can go right back into the purple areas and blend out areas if you want to. Have fun just using the scrubbing technique. Practice what you've learned, and you're going to have a wonderful painting. Now we're going to switch to our number 10 bristle brush. And all I'm going to do here, and I don't know, maybe it's just something I like to do because I live up in the mountains, I like to paint some distant pine trees. And we're going to go down to our palette, take the purple color, add a little touch of green to it. Now you already have some purple here. If not, you can add a little purple, a little blue to this if you'd like. And right over here in the right-hand corner, I'm just going to kind of smudge this because I'm going to make trees out of it. But I'm going to make me a couple of distant trees. Just like so. Be loose and free. This is another good thing for you to learn to do. Be loose and free. Don't get carried away with making an extremely detailed clump of trees. Again, if you lose your color, it's purple with a little green, maybe a little blue, a touch of white to tone the value down. I know it's hard for some of you that haven't been watching or haven't been able to get the program in your area to follow everything, because there were a lot of preliminary things before this stuff, like learning about values, composition, design, perspective. That's why I'm going to try to start answering questions on the program, because we get a lot of letters from you. Don't hesitate to write us. Give us your question, and we'll try to answer it on the air. Now notice as we go across here, we're going to fade this out so that we're creating, like we talked about before, another value system. We have this value, which is darker than this value, so it pushes the mountains way back there. Very, very important. I'm going to make this tree on the left very much taller. Okay, now notice how loose and free this is, but they still look good, especially from a distance. Okay, just suggest the shape of trees. Don't get worried about making each one individual. You can use your number 6 brush if you want, and then just kind of smudge across here until they just kind of fade out. Okay, now this is kind of painting is conducive to a lot of things. You know, you could put a flock of ducks or geese coming through or all kinds of things, but remember, it's mostly a study to learn how to paint skies. Now I'm going to take my script brush and I'm going to add a couple of the dead pine trees, and I'm going to go down to my palette, use a little water, that same gray color. I may have to mix me up a little more here, darken it slightly. Yeah, I want it to be, okay, now I'm going to have, you know, a couple of dead ones and put the little dead limbs hanging out like this. Let me tell you why we do this. I'm always thinking composition, always. And one of the most important things is to get your eye going back up into the main part of the painting. It'll hit these clouds, they'll come back through, and you stay sort of in a triangle-shaped composition. That's one of the most important compositions in painting. We learned that in our composition sessions. Composition is critical to any successful painting. Okay? Now, like I said, if you want to, you can put a few birds flying, you can put some more trees in here, you can do anything you want to that makes you feel good. I'm going to take the rest of my time and do just a little bit of highlighting in my sky to create a little more softening, add a little color or two. I really hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. And stay inspired. God bless you, and we'll see you next time on the Inspiration of Painting.